all the chores so she can wake up to a clean house.
It does not envy.
Being truly joyful when your friend gets the promotion, even if you didn't.
It does not boast.
Love does not remind your kid of his 20-game losing streak.
It is not proud.
How about we apologize more often?
It is not rude.
And let's not value a like over someone's feelings.
It is not selfish.
Love shares that last cookie.
It is not easily angered.
It breathes when it wants to scream.
It keeps no record of wrongs.
Love does not bring up the past, even though right now it'll be really convenient and totally win me this argument.
Good night.
Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth.
Love doesn't get excited when people get destroyed online.
It always protects.
Love always stands guard.
Always trusts.
Always leans into the promises.
Always hopes.
Always sees what's possible.
Always perseveres.
Always gets up one more time.
Love never fails.
And it's always worth it.
I wish we had a relationship series every month, all right? I know that's chauvinistic, but it's true, all right? Because men, we want the relationship we don't want to work on the relationship, we just want it to work. We don't want to have a bad relationship. We just don't want to do anything so it's good. We just want everything just to work out. Are you happy? Yeah, I'm happy. Let's just move on. I wish it was like that. So ladies, when you say to your man, hey, can we have a talk about our relationship? Oh, man. That's just the same as, I'm horrible at this. That's just the same as if I'm cruising down the road in my 2014 F-150, of which I'm in love with. It's the first real truck I've ever had. And I'm cruising down, and the lovely Darlene's with me. She likes riding in the truck because it's more comfortable. She likes the truck. That's good. And I'll say, wait, do you hear that? She's like, what? I said, there's a rattle coming from somewhere. She's like, what? I don't, what's going on? I said, no, turn on the radio. And I'm like, okay, you drive. I'm going to listen. I just can't stand it. When there's something rattling, if it's her coffee cup or her phone, or God forbid, it's something major. It's the same way, okay? My wife's like, wait, does the truck start up? Yeah. Does it move down the road? Yeah. Well, let's go. Turn the radio up and let's go. Men are the same way. Because ladies, Darlene would say, as long as your truck's not broken down on the side of the road, do we really need to check it? It runs, let's go. And men would say, as long as our relationship's not broken down, do we really need to talk about it? Turn up the radio, let's just go. Now, again, men and women are different, and I don't want to make this men on one side, women on the other side, because we all share different personality traits. I get that, all right? But we're different. And opposites attract, right? But also opposites attack. If you're like, what? Yeah, tune in next Sunday for that, all right? You're like, he completes me because no. After about 6 months, you're like, bam, I hate you. All right, so we're going to talk about that. Last week, Graham stirred up everybody, Pastor Graham. It was the first Sunday that my wife and I have sat and listened to worship and the sermon since we started the church. So we had a great time, except when Graham started speaking. Because Graham, right early on in the sermon, he quoted his counselor, and his counselor said this, Graham, dreaming is for kids. Reality is for adults. Graham was saying he never got to have normal holidays because he was from a divorced family, and he had to go to this, and he just wants it, and now he wants that for his kids and blah, 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 and he was just complaining to his counselor, like, and it's just not the way I want, it's just not an ideal, it's not what I dreamed about it could be. And then his counselor dropped this Eeyore bomb on him. Immediately, Darlene turns to me and says, wait, I like to dream, I like to think about the future, and no. First of all, women aren't supposed to speak in church, Darlene. So, That's funny. Look at it. That's a joke. Like, I told you, it's not in my notes. I shouldn't have said it. I'm out. Listen, I don't believe that at all. That was funny. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right, all right? So, I'm like, darn, I don't think he means that. So, we talked about it later home. At staff meeting Tuesday, I said, hey, y'all, what do you think of Graham's counselor's statement that dreams are for kids, get over it, because reality is for adults? And we had a great discussion when we were all over the place. And Graham just sit there with this smirk on his face because it was really genius because he just created a bunch of conversation to talk about. But in reality, we all come to every relationship with these relational dreams. And we get into trouble when they hit reality. And Graham would tell you, and I would tell you, dreaming, planning, looking towards the future, having hopes and desires, there's nothing wrong with that. Because we all come to every relation, especially a dating or engaged or married relationships, we all come with these dreams, right? These ideas, these hopes that we have about our relationship. We all have an idea about money. You get married, like how you're going to spend money. You're going to save money, you're going to spend money. Are you going to buy a house or are you going to rent for a while? Are you going to buy a house and rent that out and then live off? Chores. We all have some idea of like, when I get married, I'm going to do these things because I'm the man. I'm going to do these things, I'm the woman. Or no, we're going to share different things, but you have some idea about it and it's in your mind. Family. We're going to have kids. We're going to have this many kids. We're not going to have any kids. I think Darlene wanted to have like 4 kids, and we had one, it was perfect, let's have 4, and then we had our second one that said, that's it, we're not having any more, that was enough. Livy was enough for 3 kids. Then you got the holidays. Where are we going to spend with the holidays? Whose house do we go to? Whose parents do we go to? And I remember we got married, and Darlene said, let's talk about that. I think my family will spend Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter with them, and you can have all the other ones. So now my family enjoys Flag Day and Halloween. Travel. We're going to travel. We're just going to stick around. Do you want to see the world? I read this quote, I'm not a traveler, until my daughters got older and said, Dad, let's travel. I read this quote a couple years ago that said, if you want to have new adventures, you got to get your boat out of the harbor. You got to get out to new places. Maybe that's not you. Then finally, conflict resolution. We all have an idea going in relationships about all this stuff, but especially this is how we're going to decide things when we don't agree. And I'm from a family that just gets it all out on the table. If you really mean it, you say it loud. And Darlene's from a family that says, nah, you never raise your voice. You keep it inside because you don't want to offend anybody. So, we all come with these relational dreams. And there's nothing wrong with them. Most of us get them from someplace, like from what we've seen and heard. Like we've seen different couples and we're like, yeah, I like the way they do things. I like that. Or I read this book or I heard this podcast. And so that influenced your dreams for your relationships. But most of us comes by what we've experienced. What we've experienced in our own families growing up, how we saw our mom and dad or aunts and uncles treat each other. Past relationships we've been in, we're like, I don't want to go through that again. I added that to my dream list because I don't want to do that again. I want to do this. But we all have them. And we all stand somewhere, especially if you got married. You stood on your wedding day up at the altar, and you had this suitcase of dreams. Most of us are trying to recreate or avoid something that we don't want to go through again. We are all dreaming of what we want. Now, dreams aren't bad at all. And if you're a middle schooler or a high schooler, and girl or boy, and you have these dreams of like, I hope when I get married it's like this, and I want to do this, and I hope it's this, that, great, yes. But the problem comes when we take all our hopes and dreams and desires, we take our suitcase and we hand them to our significant other and we say, meet my dreams. I've been saving these for you. I've been waiting to meet you. Take my suitcase, unpack it, and make sure you meet every hope, desire, and dream I have. Because when that happens and you're the person that's receiving the suitcase, they don't feel like dreams anymore, do they? They feel like expectations. Feels like a chore, like a job. It's not a give and take anymore. It's a, I need this, I married you, get to work. See, expectations, and we all have them, and there's nothing wrong with dreams, and there's nothing wrong with expectations either, but it's the reason we get into trouble. And where the opposites attack, the reason we start attacking and we get into bad places because these expectations take over. And an expectation for our consideration today is a strong belief that something will happen in the future. I expect that you'll be home for dinner. I expect that you will speak kindly. I would expect that you don't yell. I would expect that you don't blow our money at the casino. I would expect, and we have all these things. But the bad thing is, which I came to find out, good 15 years into my marriage, I had all these things, all these expectations. At the center of every expectation is me. I've shared this with you before, and we talk openly about going to marriage counseling. Darlene, I've been a couple different times at one stretch for about a year and a half, and with our counselor down in Wenatchee named Diana. And if you've never been to marriage counseling before, we did it, and we hated it, and then all of a sudden it kicked in, and we loved it. And then the day she said, I don't think you guys need to come back, I'm like, no, wait, what? It's like working without a net, you know. Come on, Diana. No, if you want to come back later, go ahead, but you're good to go. But there was a moment in this thing, and if you've never been to counseling before, there's a moment where you dig in and you work with your counselor, and it doesn't work, you hate going, it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden your nose and comes out your ears, and all of a sudden you see the light or whatever like that. You may have a counselor like that. Go for it. But there's this moment where I just was fed up. And I was yelling at the counselor, raising my voice because I was passionate, but I was really yelling at Darlene, who was over here. And I was like, Diana, I just thought when I got married that Darlene would be this, and my marriage would be this, and we would do this, and we would do more of this, and we would do that, and she just let me go. And then she said, boy, it sounds like you had a lot of dreams for your marriage and for your expectations for your relationship. Have you ever asked Darlene what hers are? Ugh. Give me my money back. No, I hadn't. Just my suitcase. My suitcase I handed to Darlene. Said, get going. I never knew she had a suitcase. And you know what? I didn't care. Because all about me. And Kyle, you're so great. Yeah, I am now. No, I'm messed up. I didn't have a lot of good examples. I'm selfish. Listen, when I attempt to recreate or avoid something from my past, it transformed my dreams into expectations. And even the best fall down sometimes. Even the wrong words seem to rhyme. Out of the doubt that fills my mind, I somehow find that me and Dar collide. How about you? Even the best. There's this great situation in the New Testament, and it's really interesting. There's 4 dudes that bring us the biography of Jesus: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But only Matthew and Mark give us this story, tell us what happened. Matthew was there, and Mark, who got most of his information from Peter when he wrote his biography, Peter was there. And what happened is this mom had an expectation that James and John, the sons of Zebedee, this would be their mom, they were disciples. They were 12 people that Jesus handpicked to do ministry with for 3 years. These guys were the best of the best, you would think, right? But they were flawed just like you and me. And so their mommy comes to Jesus and says, hey, Jesus, I've been listening to you, and I like what you're saying, and I believe that you are the promised Messiah that we've been told about for centuries as growing up as Jews. We know you're the rescuer. We know you're going to take over. They believe you're going to take over Rome and eventually take over all heavenly realms too. So mom comes and says, hey, Jesus, when that time comes, when you get to the top, can you put my son on one side and my other son on the other, and they can rule with you? We'll just make it you three. What do you say? Their mom. Matthew says it's their mom. Mark says it was just the two. But mom had a suitcase, right? Hey, Jesus, I got some expectations for my son. And the sons went on, she basically went to Jesus and said, give my sons the spotlight. Make them known. Go viral. They're great. That's just two of them. There's 10 other disciples, right? Matthew tells us, when the 10 others heard about this, what do you think they did? I think there was some collision. They lost their tempers. They were thoroughly disgusted with the two brothers. So Jesus got them together and set them down like, you guys, this isn't going to work. He says, all of you have observed how godless rulers throw their weight around. You see how the Romans treat us. You see when somebody gets a little power, how they can just be whoever they want, and they can take money from wherever they want and treat whoever the way they want. How quickly a little power goes to their heads. But listen, there's a new sheriff in town, and there's a new way in town. It's not going to be that way with you. If you want to be great, then you be a servant. If you want to be first and known and in the spotlight, then you learn to be a slave. Because just saying, even the best fall down sometimes. Even the wrong words seem to rhyme, and out of the doubt that fills my mind, you and I, married couple, followers of Jesus, disciples, future leaders of the church, James and John were it later on. Somehow, we're going to collide. Here's what happened. I want to set you up a little bit this morning and then give you the answer next week. You're like, oh, no, I'm not going to be here next week. I got to give my cat a bath. That's okay. You can tune in on the app or on the website or whatever, or because you don't miss next week. Here's what happens when eyes collide. When you and I collide, this is what happened. At least this is my experience. First of all, you have a choice. You can just leave. When eyes collide, I leave. Now, that may mean you leave, walk out of the house, you leave, walk away from the conversation or the argument, or you just give up and leave. I'm done with this relationship. It's too much work. I'm out. This is not what I thought it was going to be. You tricked me. You fooled me. You changed. I'm gone. Or, this is my specialty, I win. When eyes collide, watch me. Everything's a competition in my life. I'm going to win this. I'm going to win every argument. I'm going to win everything. And you use the 4 things that destroy every relationship. You want to destroy your relationship, do these 4 C's. Convince, convict, control, and coerce. You try to convince the other person that their dreams aren't right and your dreams are. You convict them like, you know what? I don't think those are really godly dreams, Darlene. I don't think you're following Scripture. And you make people feel guilty. Or you just control. In my case, I just raised my voice. Just get angry. She backed away. I win. Or you coerce. Threats or rewards. Hey, if you did this, I'll do this. If you don't do this, no, I'm not going to do this. Those are relationship killers in any county. And in your desire to get what you want, in your desire to be first, in your desire to win, that's not going to work. Or you conform. Some of you know exactly what this is. You're in a relationship and you're just like, it's too much. I'm tired of arguing. As long as they're happy, I'll just live with it. And you think that's the Jesus thing to do? It really isn't. Because you're ripping yourself off from who you are, and you're ripping yourself off from who they need you to be, too. And the last one is you compromise. Like, hey, I thought that was what marriage is all about. There's a constant compromise and give and take, that's true. But when I'm talking about compromise, I'm saying you give up on what you think is right and what you know to be true, just to settle. And in evangelical Christianity within churches, and again, I'm not picking on you if that's who you are, because that's who I am. We do stuff like, I'm never divorcing because I'm committed to my marriage. Darlene said that to me. I'm like, what? I want you to be committed to me. Like, I'm in love with my marriage. I'm committed to my commitment. That's not love. That's not a healthy relationship. That's not going to get you down the road. So when we leave, when we win, when we conform, when we compromise, guess what happens? We lose. And that's a bad moment when you realize that. You either get some help or you get out. And those are tough decisions. See, the damage that comes from living out or forcing your expectations onto somebody else is pretty deep. Can you go back 2 slides, please? When we leave, when we win, when we conform, when we compromise, we lose, right? There's another option. Those are 4. There's one other more healthy option that I want to give you next week. Don't miss it. Bathe your cat Saturday so you can be here Sunday, all right? Let me expand this really quick and then we're done. Why this expectations thing is a big deal. Why it does cause damage. Why you need to listen whether you're just contemplating dating or you've been married for 40 or 50 years. All right? Because the damage that it causes, it affects you and then it just spills out onto your kids and your family and your friends and everything. So here's the expectation damage. Expectations, when you take your hopes, dreams, and desires and you give them to your partner and you say, meet them, they're the expectations, it's your job, do it. What happens is you create a debt-debtor relationship that they owe you something. Like you hired them and now they owe you. So when you say, here's my expectation and you're not meeting them, you owe me something. And I don't know that that's what love is all about. In fact, love's got nothing to do with that. You owe me. Then they do something that you want them to do, that you expect them to do, right? They come home early. They get home early and they make dinner early. They do something that you want them to do that haven't done before. And your reaction, and maybe it's not with your words, but your reaction to them is, well, that's what you're supposed to do. I remember when I was coaching football out in Manson with Coach Sargent. He would grade out every play of the varsity team in every player. He took a lot of time doing it. And every once in a while, you'd have a kid that said, hey, coach, did you see that one play when I did that? And coach would say, yeah, that's your job. That's nothing earth-shattering. That's what you're supposed to do. You're on a team. That's what you're supposed to do. That works great on a football team. It does not work great in a marriage. Because then what happens is we don't express gratitude for stuff we expect. How many times when you went to pay your mortgage, let's say, if you have one, you write a check, you send it in, how many times do you get a letter back from your mortgage company that says, thank you so much for your mortgage payment. We appreciate that you would take the time and we're so grateful that you would pay your mortgage. What happens if you don't send in your mortgage? they come after you. Now, you may have certain roles you agree on, and that's okay and everything. But when they become expectations, that's when you get in trouble. Now, this happens all the time. Darlene's not in the room. She's back working in Real Kids. This happens all the time. I'm working on this sermon this week, and she's going to figure it out later. So all week long, I tried to be grateful for things that she's supposed to do. Like, I don't want her to feel taken advantage of. So when she makes dinner, I'll say, thank you so much for making dinner. She'll do the laundry. She'll fold it and put it on my bed for me to put away. I saw it and I thought, okay, I'm going back out there. Thanks so much for doing the laundry. I appreciate it. He's like, that's stupid. Yeah, well, she loves me more than she loves you. Thank God. Yeah, listen, those little things. And she's like, well, okay, like crazy person. But inside she's like, he loves me. He really loves me. Not just for the stuff that he wants me to do or expects me to do. He doesn't take me for granted. Listen, when people meet our expectations, they don't get credit. Because we're like, hey, what's taking you so long? I gave you that suitcase years ago. So when we're in a debtor relationship and we expect, or you owe me relationship, no one can get ahead. Your partner can never be what you want them to be because they can never get ahead. And that frustration of being the person that keeps trying, and it's just like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. Yeah, that's your job. Yeah, you owe me. That frustration of being the person trying and trying and trying. Really, really difficult. In fact, that kind of relationships where your hopes, dreams, and desires turn into expectations that you require from your partner in order to be happy, it eliminates the possibility of unconditional love. Because it's conditional. Yeah, I'll love you. I'll respond nicely, lovingly, if you do what I expect you to do. Because owe you eliminates love you. Now listen. You don't have to speak out loud about this, but just inside your own heart, your own soul, your own brain. Is that you? Don't listen. If you've already gone to, yeah, my partner. Yeah, no. You don't have any control over your partner. You don't have any control over your friends. You don't have any control over who you're dating. In fact, that's what got you in trouble thinking you did have control over them. When you're in a debtor relationship, when you think they better do these things because they owe me, I said yes. Owe you eliminates love you. And it's really tough to get into a loving, caring, giving relationship in that situation. Expectations remove the margin necessary for love to be recognized and appreciated. There's no room for it. Because like, hey, I met your expectations. Yeah, well, you got more in that suitcase, brother. Keep going. You ain't done. So, we're back to Graham's counselor. What do we do with our dreams? Give up on them? Like if you have standards or expectations for marriage or relationships? Or hopes and desires, like you just Kyle said they're stupid, so get rid of them. Of course not. What do you do with these things that are ingrained with you, that you saw in your family, that things you want to avoid, things you want to pursue? I mean, how do you do those? How do those come to life in a relationship without being debt relationship, without being expectations, without handing your partner a suitcase of demands? The answer to that question is how you answer this next question. When you say, what do they owe you? What do they owe you? It took me a long time. Listen, I'm not the best husband in the world. I'm looking around though. I'm better than most of you all. I'm kidding. I'm progress. I'm moving forward. I'm not perfect. I'm not. It took me a long time to even start thinking about, hey, Kyle, maybe you need to be a better husband. Long time. And then even longer to do something about it. But here's what I know. Here's what happy couples know. And I am in a happy couple relationship, just so you all know. Don't ask Dar. No, we are. We are. Here's what I know. That happy couples, the couples I know, the couple I am, when we're happy, when we're operating at our best, when we answer the question, what do I owe? The answer is, you owe each other everything, but you expect nothing in return. We talk a lot about, you've heard me say this so many times, I talk about every premarital counseling thing I do when I'm going to marry a couple and everything. We go into relationships because we live in a world that says it's 50-50, each one doing your own way. And it's not 50-50. There are times where your partner's not going to have anything to give, and you better give 100. In fact, real love, the love we're going to talk about next week, that's what that love has to do with your relationship. When you find a way to enter into a long-term relationship and you can serve and give and meet the dreams and desires, expectations of the other person without expecting anything in return, you're a happy couple. If you find a person that will do that in return, you'll never be more happy. Jesus pulls all his disciples around, and others were probably listening too. And these Jewish guys, Jewish families, were used to just a bunch of rules, right? By the time Jesus comes on the scene, there's 620 commandments. Like the 10 that he gave back in the wilderness, that most of us, even if you haven't been to church, know there's 10 commandments. We don't know where they are or what they are, but we just know, don't do those, all right? There's 10 commandments. Well, the Jewish temple, Pharisees, controllers, religious leaders, judgmental rulers turned them into 620. And Jesus comes on the scene and basically says, hey, now I'm going to give you a new commandment. It's just one. Love each other. Like you heard the do to others as you do yourself. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just boiling it down. This is just one. Because he's saying, here's a new commandment. All 620 will fit under this. Love each other. And like, okay, I'll be a loving person. Nah, that's too easy. He says, just as I have loved you, you should love each other. That's a lot. How do we do that? How do you love like Jesus? You ain't Jesus. I'm not Jesus. How do you love like Jesus? Next week, we'll talk about it. Jump into the next slide. Next slide. When you enter a loving relationship and you want to be happy, satisfied, get the most out of it, when you determine that the person owes you nothing and you owe them everything, that you're going to live serving them, it's a submission competition. And this is no fun. I know it doesn't make any sense. I just know this works. I know that Jesus suggested it. Some of you older people, maybe some of you younger people, we were raised in the church, and we'll get into this next week, where we said, women, submit to your husbands. Wives, submit to your husbands, which meant shut up, do what they say, no matter what. And that's not the teaching of Jesus. That's certainly not love. When we look at the New Testament, it starts with, hey, submit yourselves one to another. Everybody's submitting. If you want to be in a great, loving relationship, it's a submission competition. Who can be more servant-oriented than the other person? It's a race to the back of the line. Instead of a competition that says, hey, Jesus, can I sit on either side of you? My brother can go on the other side. She just says, nah. If you want to be great, if you want to get the most out of life, you got to want to get the most out of your relationships and most out of your marriage, you got to be last, because that's when it's best. Here's a couple next steps to consider. And both here in Chelan and Brewster, we hand out your handouts. There's a blue card in there, and we talk about the blue cards every week. They're really important. If you have a question or comment or prayer request, but also the next steps are on there. If you're viewing online, they're in the app or on the website. You can access them. Let me give you 3 quick next steps, because I don't think any of you, whether you've been to church before or ever coming back, Brewster, online or here, everyone wants their relationships to be better. And I know what it is to be a selfish person in a bad relationship. So in the last 5 to 10 years, I've just wanted to shout to, especially the dudes, listen, you don't have to be miserable. You can enjoy your relationship. And the best way, shut up and serve your spouse. It works. Well, I'm not getting what I want. She's not going to treat me that way. Okay. You be first, and your relationship will end up last. Step 1. This is an easy one. Identify your main expectations. Don't have to talk about it. Don't have to tell anybody. The first step almost every Sunday is the easiest one. Just identify, just you. What are your expectations in a marriage or loving relationship, or just with your friends? And it's okay. What are they? Comma, who are you expecting to meet them? Who have you given your suitcase to and said, take care of me, you owe me? Second, evaluate your relational direction. Most of us never do. We talk all the time in premarital counseling. We don't want couples just to survive. And most of us do. We don't ever stop. We don't ever consider what's going on. We don't ever have a talk. We don't ever listen for the rattle. We just carry on. And then pretty soon, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, we'll raise the kids as best we can, and then we'll just figure out how to entertain ourselves until we die. You can survive. We want couples to thrive. We want you to enjoy your partner. We want you to enjoy your friendships. Evaluate the direction of your relationship right now. Are you going into a loving, serving, submissive relationship? Or are you fighting with each other because you're trying to be selfish, or you got this, that's what you're supposed to do attitude? In your relationship or relationships, where's it headed? And listen, should probably always start with this, but we should always end with this. If you're moving or considering or evaluating any relationship, whether you've been to church before, or this is your first time you've ever tuned in or showed up, I would encourage you to receive the sacrificial love of Jesus. When you move in relationship with Jesus, you start being filled with a new sense of love and a new sense of service and a new sense of forgiveness that you didn't have before on your own. See, when Mama comes and says, hey, Jesus, I got 2 sons. I want them to be first and second. You decide over everybody else. Jesus says, come on, man, we're not going to do it that way. Then that same kind of conversation, he tacks on this. This is what the Son of Man, talking about himself, this is what I've done. Jesus came to serve, not to be served, and then to give away his life in exchange for the many who are held hostage. Hostage by your own sinfulness. Hostage by your own regret. Hostage by your own sin and bad choices and wrongful moves in life. And Jesus showed up and showed his love for us when he said, someone's got to pay for that. Someone's got to connect God's creation with God. God's creation who's messed up and God who's perfect. And Jesus is going to pay the price and be the sacrifice for that. So Jesus comes up and says, yeah, we're not going to live like that. In fact, I'm here as an example of how you should live. More about that next week.